Evening, everybody. This is Dr. Hack, and we are back, guys, for more Ruy Lopez. Now, this is the fourth video in this series, and we're going to use the strategy from all three of the previous videos in order to accomplish what we need to accomplish today. If you haven't seen those, you can go back and take a look. If you want to just hang out and see what we're going to do, I have faith in you. Maybe you can keep up. We'll see. The other thing to know is that we are taking this on from a beginner or kind of amateur standpoint, which means there are going to be some high-level strategies that come into the games today, the positions. I'm going to describe those strategies so you know what they are. I'm going to teach you about them, and then we're going to give them the nod, and we're going to skip them and avoid them. We're going to play different moves, guys, and steer the game away from that stuff. Right. I think that's all. That's not all. Because, after we get done with the Ruy Lopez, the question that I have for you guys is, what's your favorite opening? We probably should do one with black, don't you think? Put something in the comments if you want to see a specific one. Otherwise, I'm going to do whatever I want. All right. So let's go see what this expert strategy is that we're going to come across today. I need to flip the board to a different kind of board. So again, I'm going to have to teach you something that you really don't need to know. And I'm going to teach you this because I want you to see what you shouldn't do, and why you shouldn't do it. If you don't really want to know all this, you don't need it to play what we're going to play in this opening. You can go ahead and skip. But if you're really curious, this is why, and we need to know why, I think. So what I'm going to do is I've turned on the computer engine, which is why I've kind of changed screens here. And you can see that the computer thinks that white is ahead by 3/10 of a pawn. That's how you read this. If this was +1, it would think that white's ahead by a pawn. If it's -1, black's ahead by a pawn. Okay. And I'm going to make moves that look very normal for white. But for black, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move pawns. Okay? And so we can see if black makes a pawn move. Now, we don't want to lose pawns, right? We don't want to make bad pawn moves. And white keeps making piece moves, we can see that this number kind of keeps increasing. And from that, we can get kind of this idea. And the idea that we can get from it is that piece moves must carry more time value than pawn moves do. And that's intuitive. You don't got to think very hard to get that one. How long is it going to take you to checkmate him with a pawn? Forever and a day, because it's got to walk 8 squares down and make a queen and then chase the king down. Well, how quickly are you more likely to, checkmate him with these guys? Well, that could happen right in the middle of the game before the pawns ever get down there, right? So these carry more time value. They progress the game faster than the pawns do. And that's kind of what we get from this first idea. Now, here's another one. And this time I'm going to give up, right? I'm going to give up a pawn. We've lost one. And we already know that because this doesn't read -1, we know that there's something going on for time value for white. Because black's ahead by 1 pawn, it should be -1 pawns if that's exactly what's going on. But we see that this bishop can't get out, and we see that this bishop can't get out. And so we know when he moves one of these pawns, he's going to be giving up time value because white's pieces are just going to zip into the game with no more time value lost moving pawns. And as we go further into this, I'm going to go until this reads 0, okay? So we're just going to keep going forward, and we're going to let this bishop out first. Okay, let's do it. Let's bring this guy into the game. You didn't like my move. That's okay though. And now let's bring this guy into the game. We need a square for him, and let's castle. And it thinks that we've zeroed out the game right here. Okay, so we take inventory here, and we go, well, how far is white ahead? Can we play this move as well? It stays 0. Sure does. How far is white ahead? He's got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces in the game, and it's his turn, right? And black has 1, 2 pieces in the game. Almost 5 pieces to 2 is worth a full pawn of value, of time. And that happened in the last example too. We got 3 pieces ahead, and it was worth 9/10 of a pawn. 3 pieces ahead here, it's worth a full pawn. We kind of get a feel for it, don't we? When you move a big piece into the game off the back row, it's worth about 1/3 of a pawn of actual value. If you were to move a knight in the game and he were to move a pawn, that's you getting ahead by 1/3 of a point. Ooh, right? Now let's get back to our Ruy Lopez stuff. Let's see why this matters. So the move that we're interested in here is the knight coming to f6. And we can see immediately what he's up to, I hope. He's trying to take a pawn. And we get to choose whether we defend the pawn or whether we don't. And it turns out in the Ruy Lopez, both options are recommended, just not by me. Okay? Because if you are, let's say, Magnus Carlsen, or Fabiano Caruana, you can get away with this stuff because the strategy that's going to come up after this very next move is definitely expert master level territory. Because there is one thing that we know as amateurs in the Ruy Lopez that we don't do. I mean, there are two things that we don't do, really, in life. You don't eat a cactus, and you don't take this knight. Right? Because if we take the knight, what we did was we pushed the game into this territory where we have the endgame advantage. And it's 40 moves away to realize it. And we're going to lose or win the game in a big way before that happens as amateurs, right? So we are not going to steer the game this way, even though, Carlsen, Caruana, they've played this position more than once. And that's okay, right? A-okay for them. Can we play it our way? Our way is to not take the knight. Well, now we go back to that stuff that we learned at the beginning of the video, which was, did we get enough time value to lose that pawn? Was that okay? He's got one extra pawn here. Well, let's see. We've got one piece in the game, two pieces in the game, three pieces in the game. Black's got two pieces in the game. It's his turn, though. So he can move a third piece in the game right now, and white didn't really get ahead, did he? The only small advantage that I see is that this bishop is going to have a pawn move before it can get into the game. And this bishop's just going to zip out into the game whenever it's ready. So maybe white's ahead a third of a pawn of time value later, not even now, right? So I would say that if black plays the principled move, he could make mistakes here. We could all make mistakes. This would be a big mistake for black. Because now white's got three pieces in the game. He's only got one. And he can't even develop this one because he'll lose a pawn. Right? That is bad news bears. That's not good for him. So we could always make mistakes, but if he plays the principled move and he just keeps up in time, we didn't get enough for the pawn, and therefore it just wasn't worth it. Okay? All right, so we go back and we go, so from this position right here, since we can't seem to navigate it as amateurs, we should avoid it. And thank goodness, because this looks like a mess to my eyes. I don't know about you guys. We don't have to go here. We don't even have to go here. We don't even have to let him take the pawn. Let's not let him take the pawn. That's so much easier. All right, so we come back to this position and we go, well, the open Ruy Lopez, that's for Magnus Carlsen. Great, let's let him have it. And let's look at ways that we can defend the pawn. And let's look at this one, right? And we're going to dismiss this one, even though it's a great move. This is transposing the game directly back into the four knights, which is an opening that goes all the way to the top of chess, no problem. But we also remember our strategy that we don't want these two pieces to trade. And we're kind of forcing our opening around that idea is what we've been doing, what I've been doing for you. Okay? And remember, this is what would happen. As soon as we defend this e-pawn, our spidey sense goes off and we'd like to play c3, but we can't. If you don't know why I'm saying these things, go back to video 2. And so we play a move and all of a sudden he's trading off the knight for the bishop again. Because he can, right? They may not do it, but if he can, then he could. And we don't want that to happen. So we go back and we go, okay, so we're not going to play the knight to c3 because we've just made this choice. And the choice that we've made is that this bishop is stronger than this knight. It's making us do some weird stuff. But good weird stuff, right? Okay, watch this. So we defend the pawn. And all of a sudden, the world makes sense again. Because there is nothing complicated going on here. There's nothing to think about, no calculations to make. This is just another chess position and we're developing our stuff. It feels so much better. And if he tries, the only move he can try that would make our life complicated again would be this one. Because that's putting another unit of pressure in this spot that he is attacking one time and now he's attacking it 2 times. The problem is, again, what did he give up? What is he leaving behind? And he left behind this guy. because now this knight is pinned to a king. It can't move, and we can just grab a pawn, and we are in excellent shape now with white. We're about to win some more stuff, as a matter of fact, if he does nothing. For example, what if we just took this knight? Can he take it back? Gosh, I don't think he can. Because if he does, we're going to get a fork between a king and a rook now. Zoinks! That's good stuff for us. Okay, so I believe that black can't get away with this d-pawn move this early on because he's leaving behind some stuff. And so he probably shouldn't, right? He probably should do something else. Maybe he plays pawn to d6. And we go, oh, e-pawn's guarded. We need to play c3, and we play it, right? Let's say he does a different thing. Let's say he brings the bishop out first. He doesn't defend the pawn. Oh, boy. Well, I mean, we always have to make the choice. Are we going to take the knight and then take the pawn? What do you guys think? Pause the video for a second. See if that's a good idea. All right, let's go there. Now remember, when you're solving a tactic, you always look for stuff that's not defended very well. And let's solve this from black's point of view. Okay? It's good to look at it from our opponent's point of view pretty often. And the weak thing that we see is this one's not guarded very well. And we know already from previous experience that that one's not guarded very well, but that one's hard to get to now, right? The queen can't go through the knight. And even if she could, you know, she's one of those blue shirts on Star Trek. She's too valuable. So she'd be lost to this bishop, so she's not even going to do that. Okay. Beam me down, Scotty, right? Yeah. Okay. So we look for the other weak spot, and that actually happens to be here. Because there are weak spots where there's nothing defending it, but there are also weak spots where you're attacking the same number of times that it's being guarded. Because the way you can think about it is, if you bring one more piece to attack the blue circle here, then you can just go capture it because there's only one guard. If you bring one more piece to attack the knight here, then you can just go capture it because there's 0 guards. They behave exactly the same way, these two things. Just one of them is attacked once, defended once, and is called under-defended, and the other one is hanging. It's not defended at all. And black has a move that attacks both of those things, and now we're threatening checkmate, and we're also threatening a knight. Yeah, not good, right? No. Okay, so we know not to take the knight and take the pawn. And we know that we're not going to take the knight if we can't get a pawn for it, so we're not taking the knight at all. Okay, and so what are we doing on this move then? Well, we can castle. We could play c3, just getting ready for when he defends it. We know he's going to do it eventually, right? And kind of this is where we're getting into the middle game. And in the middle game, we need to learn how kind of to behave and how to move our pieces through the middle of the board to get to him without losing our stuff. But, you know, that's the next step of this. Now that we've gotten through the opening and we feel very comfortable with all the different things that can happen, which I hope we do, we can go into that kind of strategy. And maybe we'll do that briefly, one video, you know, maybe more than one. I'm guessing one, before we switch into the next thing here. I really hope this helps somebody. You guys have a good one. Take care now. Bye.